Doncic's spectacular game winner was the big story from yesterday's Mavs-Clippers game, but the other storyline emerging from the series is the struggling Paul George. Playoff P, nowhere to be found. Going only 3 of 14 last night from the field, George has the lowest effective field goal percentage of any player in the playoffs with at least 50 shot attempts. Here's Doc Rivers.
If you're not going to do anything special to get Paul George off, what's the conversation you have to kind of get him comfortable playing like he's supposed to be able to play?
Hey, listen, we've run the same stuff all year. Paul George has averaged 25 points. So it's not like they're doing something defensively. You know, we just got to play with great confidence. Paul, again, I still believe this. He's going to be fine. He just has to be more aggressive, but aggressive in the right way, you know. And I think it'll work out for him. We do run plays for him. We do all the other stuff. But we have to get him more involved. And that's really just running our stuff the way we should run it.
NBA champion Kendrick Perkins with us now. Perk, good to see you. Your Celtics took care of business last night. As for the Clippers, Stephen A., not so much. Stephen A., what happened to Paul George?
Well, I think a couple of things. Number one, I think that he's had to play some point guard duties, particularly with Patrick Beverley not being there. And I think those responsibilities may have thrown him off a little bit. I think he needs to be off the ball a little bit more and have more plays called for him so he can just find a way to get going. His shot is not falling. We get all of that. And I understand that things are normal in Doc Rivers' eyes, but it ain't normal compared to what we're seeing from Paul George. He scored 14, 11, and 9. The last 3 games, okay? Doc talked about his floor game. I respectfully disagree. I don't think his floor game has been that impressive. By the way, it also alarms me that both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, neither was on Luka Doncic the last 3 plays of the game or so. They've been, I'm like, where are they? We don't just rave about them because of their ability to score the ball. That's not why the only reason we consider them stars. We consider them stars because they're two-way players. Paul George has the ability to lock you down. He's legit 6'7". So is Kawhi Leonard, legit 6'8". What the hell is the problem? Where is it defensively that you're giving up 135 points to the Dallas Mavericks without Porzingis on the floor? This is a problem defensively. But offensively, in terms of Paul George, he's missing in action. There's an APB out for him. I can't find him. He even seemed to be shying away from the ball and looking for his shot as the game waned. He didn't look like the confident Paul George that I've become accustomed to seeing, and the pressure is on him. Kawhi Leonard is a 2-time NBA Finals MVP and a 2-time champion. We know what he can do. We know what he has done. We call Paul George a star, and he is, but he has to show up in postseason time. Last 4 postseasons, he's averaged 28 twice, 27 and like 24. He's averaging 15 a game right now on 29% shooting and 22% shooting from three-point range. Kawhi Leonard won a title with Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry. But somehow you have Paul George and you have, the rest of the crew with Morris and those boys and Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams and those boys. And you're tied 2-2 when Kristaps Porzingis has basically been out 2.5 of these 4 games. It's inexcusable. Paul George is a big reason why, and he's got to get it together.
Well, Kawhi also won with Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, and they were very deep, and they had a good year because the Warriors were hurt. I mean, obviously, the Warriors at full strength, no one beats them.
The secondary weapon was Siakam.
Here's the issue. This is what happened to Paul George, the playoffs. And I want Paul George to succeed. He's a great player under normal circumstances. He has, at this point, it's fair to say, consistently underperformed when you need him the most. And he's not like, I think the point about Patrick Beverley is a point well taken, Stephen A., because Paul George and Kawhi, for that matter, neither one of them known for their passing, although Kawhi's become a much better passer over time, but still neither one is really a point guard, obviously. So I get that, and you have to pick up some slack for Patrick Beverley's injury, but Paul George consistently has performed, has kind of gone away when they needed him to step up. He even made comments after the game pointing to that idea. So he's taking responsibility for it. Good for him. Who's better, Paul George or Pascal Siakam? Like, Kawhi had a choice to play with either. And as you pointed out, Stephen A., Masai didn't want to give up Pascal Siakam to bring Paul George in to Toronto to keep Kawhi. But you know what? Under most circumstances, Paul George is better. And he's also a fantastic two-way player. But Siakam, we just saw come off of playoffs where he was the Robin that they needed. He was the crime partner. Luka has Porzingis, and Luka overcame it yesterday even without Porzingis. But his crime partner's been balling, right? What's been the problem with the Freak when Middleton hasn't balled at all, right? That's a problem for them. We saw these different players. What's Harden going to do without Westbrook? And Harden stepped up, but we still have those questions. What is the ace going to do without the number 2 guy there? And by the way, how's the number 2 guy going to play when he is there and the ace needs him? Kawhi needs Paul George right now. And Paul George is not stepping up on the offensive side of the ball, period. Siakam did. So who'd you rather have? A guy who's normally better, but when you need him most gets worse? Or a guy who's normally not as good, but he's still pretty damn good, and when you need him most, practically plays like an MVP? I mean, it's looking bad for Paul George right now.
Well, Paul George made some interesting comments in his postgame after Game 3, and he said he's going to continue to get lost in the game. Yeah, you lost all right, because nobody could find you. Nobody could find you right now. And Paul George has to take ownership. He has to be more accountable of himself. He has to look himself in the mirror. Kawhi is doing what he's supposed to do. I never questioned Kawhi Leonard. That was never my question. I always questioned what was we going to get out of Paul George. And it's showing right now. And I get it, right? You have bad shooting nights. It happens. It happens to the best of them in the league where they're not performing on the offensive end. But the Clippers have enough firepower that if Paul George is not performing like he's supposed to, that they could still put up big numbers. Now, if I'm Paul George, a franchise guy, a maxed out guy, how I'm going to insert myself into this series? I'm going to insert myself by saying I'm one of the best defenders in this league at the wing position. We have a problem with stopping a 21-year-old stud in Luka Doncic. I'm going to take ownership, and I'm going to lock him up. I'm going to pressure him 94 feet. I'm going to get into him. He's not going to be able to smell the ball because I don't have it going offensively. When you watch Kawhi Leonard in Game 3, he wasn't waiting on Paul George. He wasn't waiting on anybody. He came out with the attack mindset on the offensive end. Same thing he did in Game 4. We can't ask Kawhi to do everything. Excuse me, that's why you have a duo. Paul George got to hold his weight. And even if he's not scoring, Lou Will had 36. Like I said, they have enough firepower. But if I'm PG, I'm going to insert myself by playing on the defensive end and taking on the responsibility and saying, no, Doc, I'm not going to put Morris on Luka. I'm going to guard Luka for the entire game.
Okay, what I'm saying to you is this. I think you're absolutely right offensively. But I'm not letting Kawhi Leonard off the hook in switching and being allowed to get picked off from guarding Luka Doncic. Are you doing that? Are you saying that? Listen, I have no problem with Paul George or Kawhi Leonard guarding Luka Doncic. I understand because they both are stalwart defensive players. But the flip side to it is that everybody and their mother knew that ball was going to be in Luka's hands for that last play. How the hell did you let yourself get switched off and for Reggie Jackson to end up on Luka? I mean, are you saying that you're not mentioning Kawhi for that?
No. I'm not saying that, Stephen A. Because look, we all look at what happened in the last play and we say that's what cost them the game, and rightfully so. But it was a first quarter, it was a second quarter, it was a third quarter, it was a fourth quarter. Luka didn't score his 40-plus in that last possession. He had 40-plus throughout the game. And when you watch the game, it was the Morris twin that was taking on the responsibility of picking him up full court. Paul George should take that on. That's all I'm saying. Kawhi should have switched out? Absolutely. Just like LeBron did when they played the Clippers the start of the bubble, when he guarded Kawhi and switched out on PG and then let him get a shot. Kawhi should have done that. He know that. I think Kawhi, you could tell in his body language in his post-game interview. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is throughout the course of the game, PG don't have it going. The Clippers have enough firepower offensively that PG, you can insert yourself because you're one of the elite defenders in the wing position in the league, and y'all have a problem with a 21-year-old killer in Luka Doncic. Take on the responsibility.
Look, Paul George saying he wants to lose himself in the game is both why he's great and the problem with Paul George. He wants to make the right basketball play and everything, but sometimes, and he's a very good team player because of that, but sometimes you got to impose yourself. So I agree with you, Perk. Paul George could get it going, at least on the defensive side, especially when you have a guy like Lou Williams who totally has that mentality, who sometimes might not make the perfect basketball play, but damn it, he's feeling it, and his team needs the buckets, so he'll go get it. But you have that guy on your team. So look, as I said, Pascal Siakam, given the way he played in the playoffs last year, at this moment is holding on to him instead of trading him for Paul George. That's making Masai look smart at this moment.
All right. I'll leave you all with this. Paul George is the first player to shoot below 25% in 3 straight playoff games since Bob Cousy. That was before we were all born, just to put this in context of how bad it's been for him right now. We're staying with the Clippers, though, fellas. Montrezl Harrell apologizing to Luka Doncic after an offensive remark. Stephen A. and Max have a whole lot to say about this next. Kendrick Perkins definitely sticking around.